Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw. It's a group photo of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. I guess you're all wearing the t-shirt, the uniform. And then in the front, 2 of your colleagues are holding up these, like, I don't know even the breed, like toy poodles or something. And then kind of standing majestically, I guess, is your dog, who's
Pow
just, what's his name?
His name is Pow Pow, and he's a wonderful volunteer dog again. And his lovely owners are the 2 people to my left in the picture.
Oh, he's not your
No,
dog.
unfortunately, my dog is not well behaved enough to join our visits. It was always my dream to be able to bring her to work, but yes, unfortunately, I don't think she would be quite suitable to do this role. So I work together with all these wonderful volunteers and their own dogs during my day to day, and then see my dog.
So this is obviously you're in a school situation because it's a lot of volunteers. Are we doing separate classes or what's all this all about?
I basically go to every visit that we have scheduled, and sometimes because it's a volunteer program, we actually send out the schedule of visit requests to all our volunteers, and we're obviously mindful that they have their own personal schedules as well, and so they get to pick and choose basically which visits they can attend. So some days we'll have 1 volunteer with 1 dog, other days we might have 5 volunteers and 5 of their dogs, so it just depends day to day. So it's another sort of aspect of my job that I like, that no 2 days are the same, because we're always in different venues with different age groups of students. Different volunteers join each visit, so it's a constant stream of different dogs and different volunteers and different students as well.
Sweet. Have you had any situations that, I mean, just generally speaking, I'm sure it must be a really positive experience for the kids, or just like, well, first of all, it's a new sort of thing. I still find it kind of baffling that some kids will just never have even touched a dog. So do you have an example that stands out in your head of just like, this one time we made it had such an impact. Like, it was so visible on this child or this teacher or whoever, this person's consciousness. Does one event really stand out?
Absolutely. So I've been in this role for about 8 years now. And in the initial I think it was my 2nd year, we went to a school in a quite remote location of Hong Kong in a housing estate. And so we were invited by one of the schools that was on the housing estate. And in this area, being public housing, we know that there's not great exposure to dogs in particular, because of unfortunately in Hong Kong, many public housing estates won't allow you to keep dogs as pets or companions. So when we went into this school, it was a Chinese medium school, and so they wanted us to come in and practice English with their students and teach them about animals and bring all our wonderful dogs. And so the staff were really supportive to have this experience. And when we walked in the room, there was one child who was absolutely petrified. And I've seen this happen so often, and I am empathetic to that fear that a lot of young students unfortunately have. But during the hour, so we just requested that he stay in the room. He didn't have to be anywhere close to the dog. He could choose where he wanted to be that would make him feel comfortable. He had a teaching assistant who stayed together with him to talk him through what was happening. And eventually the tears sort of calmed down, and he sat cross-legged on the floor, and he was looking and watching and observing what was going on. And that was basically his other classmates who had all joined together in a circle, with our volunteer dogs in the middle, and myself doing the education work and running through some worksheets, and also having the students interact with the volunteer dogs. And they were doing things like learning how to greet a dog properly so that we can keep safe, and having that experience and learning the different rules that they could take home and away from the class to do that in their everyday lives. And then also brushing the dogs, so giving them a little groom to
fun.
Yeah. And then also as well feeding the dogs some treats, which obviously the owners bring as well, depending on their dog's dietary needs. But they get that opportunity to really have hands-on contact. And it's that hands-on contact that makes such a difference. Our visits are generally only for 1 hour. And so when we go in, there is sometimes fear, there's apprehension, there's hesitance. And then by the end of the hour, we've got, please, we don't want the dogs to go. To stay, we want to have more time with them. And so that physical interaction is really critical. And so for this young student who was sitting near the door and he was observing and watching, at about the 30-minute mark, he was seeing all his classmates do this. Whatever he'd been told in the past that had sort of created this fear, or his experience from the past, because some students have had negative experience with dogs.
Oh, for sure.
And so everything's on their terms, very gently, very slowly, at their pace, whenever they feel comfortable. And we just facilitate that. And so he actually came over with his teaching assistant and he wanted to join the circle. So that was the first step, that he wanted to move a bit closer and observe a bit more
Nice.
closely. And then sort of 45 minutes, he was like, I said to him, I asked him, I said, oh, would you like to try and say hello to the dog? So just the basic first step, coming up and giving the dog a gentle pat and making that contact. And he was a bit apprehensive, but I held his hand. We came closer step by step. We had the baby steps, we were counting, and eventually he was standing next to the dog. And again, just a testament to the dogs as well themselves. They kind of pick up on these emotions as
Hmm.
well. And so the dog was super calm, just sitting there, knowing the routine. A lot of these dogs, when they have the bandanas on, they know that it's time for work, and they know sort of they need to keep calm. They've all been through behavior assessments to join the program to make sure that they're suitable. And so he was just sitting there, basically waiting to be patted. And the student, he reached his hand out, touched the dog very gently, very apprehensively at first on the back of his neck, and then ran his hand down his back. And you could just see the smile that lit up on this
Hmm.
boy's face was just like, there, that's the magic moment. That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to achieve with all these students that we meet, is to just give them that positive association with dogs, and also help them learn the benefits of interaction with not only companion animals, but looking and observing and taking care of wild animals that we might have in our area as well, and just build
Hmm.
empathy and that compassion towards life that's not necessarily human. And so anyway, he touched the dog and he then proceeded to want to brush the dog. And the sort of last step, feeding the dog, is sort of the big one, because you obviously have contact with the dog's mouth. They obviously lick
Yeah.
your hand, which can be a quite an amusing moment when they have that experience. So
Hmm.
yeah, we worked our way up to the third step, to feeding the dog a treat, and he was just overjoyed. And it's a series of 4 lessons that we give to most schools, or we do one-off presentations, and this one was a series of 4 classes. So for the
Okay.
second class, he was like first in line to join the circle, hands up straight away, who wants to meet the dog? Me. And so just seeing from an hour the change that we can have in association with animals and contact with animals in this student's life. And at the end of the class, he received a certificate. He was really proud to go home and explain to his parents the experience
Nice.
that he had. So the sort of the teaching and the education goes past the students themselves and into their communities, through their friends, their families. And it's really, it's the best thing we can do, is to give people education and experiences that are positive, in the hope that they will continue that education to others around them.
Yeah, for
Spread the
sure.
love.
Great. It's great. That's that's really fantastic that that's happened. So in turn, let's go into who you are. So where did you grow up in Hong Kong, or did you grow up outside of Hong
So
Kong?
I came to Hong Kong in 94, I think it was. So yeah, so 94 I arrived, and I'm originally from Ireland, and I moved with my family overseas to Bahrain in the Arabian Gulf in the
Okay.
80s, early 90s. We were there for 6 years. It's definitely very different now to what it was back then. I spent most of that 6 years between school and horse riding, which was a long
Oh
term
wow.
passion of mine, and something unfortunately I haven't been able to continue in Hong Kong. Yeah, so I've grown up all my life with pets in my family, contact with other animals, be it farm animals or wildlife, around the different areas that I've lived. Been a
Hmm.
fascination of mine, with National Geographic and Discovery Channel and all the different animal shows. I think I drove my parents to tears sometimes. It'd always be animals on the TV, and just a slight obsession, which still continues today.
Slight, a slight obsession.
So yeah, so basically we moved to Hong Kong, and then I was doing kindergarten teaching for a while, for 12 years, and it just kind of got to a point where I really wanted to continue teaching, and I loved working with kids. but I really wanted to sort of transition into something that I was passionate about and teaching about something that I was passionate about, which was animals. And this opportunity came up with Animals Asia, and actually Jasmine Nuns, who I think you've also interviewed on your program, who is
Mm-hmm.
doing Kambali and the forest bathing and nature talks. She was actually
Mm-hmm.
in the position prior to me and said that, this is going to become available. We think you'd be perfect for the role. It's marrying all your loves of teaching, working with kids, but also the animal aspect, which had me jumping on the position. And I was very blessed. I got the role and have been doing that now for 8 years. And literally, Animals Asia to me was the pinnacle company. There's nothing after Animals Asia. That was always my sort of target organization that I would like to have worked with.
Right.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
So in terms of your footprint across Hong Kong, like I mean, I see you just I see you all the time in Sai Kung. You're out there, like this is like field work. But does that, the work you do for Animals Asia, does it put you all across Hong Kong?
It does. So, I mean, Animals Asia is my main full-time role, Monday to Friday, and often after after normal hours as well. It's basically government liaison, so going to different government meetings related to animal welfare issues, running our Dr. Dog and our Professor Paws programs, so taking me out to schools in different areas all across Hong Kong, mostly on a daily basis pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously with COVID now, it's mostly been online classes, but we're starting to slowly get physical classes going again, which is fantastic. And I'm super
Nice.
excited to have that going again. And then also as well, just doing the cow stuff in my supposed spare and free time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also previously I was with Friends of Sai Kung, which is another great local organization doing lots of work for the environment, the community, recycling
Right.
in our area, and I was doing the communications for them as well, sort of managing the Facebook page and website and a
So
couple of other things as well. So I just over the years have tried to involve myself in things that help our community, help the animals in our community. And obviously, for me personally, just anything animal related is where my
mm-hmm.
heart is at. And so I will do whatever I can within my means and within
Mm-hmm.
time to help where needed and when needed. And that seemed to obviously at the moment be centered around the cows mainly. So that continues.
Right. Somebody who's listening to this might be like, this is this is all about being in Hong Kong. It's obviously very centered. It's very local, right? Like you're clearly a very on the ground, person to person, animal to animal. Like it's very very much localized. So for somebody listening to you from, I don't know, from let's just say South Africa, or somebody listening to you from Canada or New Zealand, or like if we look at it as a more global mindset,
Yeah.
right? You're living in Bahrain, right? So how is what you're doing relevant to them? Like how is that experience in terms of somebody listening to you from outside
Yeah.
of your local environment? What can they learn as, I don't say as by example, but
Mhm.
what could inspire them to go like, well, in terms of where I live, I live in Mexico and I can do X because that does transfer. So what would you say transfers?
I think definitely across the globe, we have, again, for me, the passion is animals. So, what can we do across the world to help different animals? Well, I think, there are animal issues globally. It's not just an issue in Asia, it's not just an issue in Hong Kong. Across the world, animals are suffering. They're going through different experiences in their daily lives that impact upon them, with both companion animals, farm animals, wild animals, and animals used for different industries. And, I think the biggest thing that I can encourage people around the world to do is to educate themselves about what is going on for these different types of animals in your community, in your country. Try and obviously form an opinion. Not everybody will have the same opinion about these different topics and issues. And if it's something that you care about, and we have to look at it. Obviously, COVID's been quite a highlight in some of these issues because, how we treat other sentient beings has been an issue, obviously, with COVID. And also, as well, just the different industries and the choices that we make as humans. So what I'm trying to say is that, animals, the environment, our homes, what we experience day to day, it's all interconnected. And
Hmm.
so I think trying to learn more and then reflecting on our own personal lives and how we could potentially be making small positive changes to what we do and how we behave and how we act day to day can actually have a huge impact collectively on animals, on the environment, on the way that these things link together. So I think educating yourselves, learning about the issues that you have in your area, learning about the connections of these things to each other, and also just being mindful and making better choices. I think, we can give people tools and education and information, but it's up to the individual to consciously make an educated and informed decision about what they want to do in their own personal lives.
Hmm. So I'm going to use this as a kind of as a break to move on to the next image because there is a connection in my mind of what you're saying. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.